I got to ask you, do you think it was a penalty? And then I'll give my take on it. Good morning for those of you who are waking up in Europe, and welcome to the ISB show from everyone else around the world. We are covering the UEFA Women's Euros semifinal. First matches in the books, Shoshana. England, Italy. We have tons and tons and tons and tons to talk about this. This was so much controversy in this match, so much craziness, so many things happening. Then the defending champions, the Lionesses, get through to the final again. Third final in a row for this team. But what happened? What a crazy journey this was. It was a crazy match this was. And Italy put up a heck of a fight.
Yes. I am not a happy camper. I'm about to piss off a lot of our English fans, perhaps. But yeah, I have a lot to say about it.
Okay, so let's start off with the match. We're going to get into the all-important topic. Stay tuned for that. Everyone knows what we're about to talk about. It was a little bit of a penalty decision that we'll get to in a second. But up until that point, what did you think? It was an interesting match because, yes, England had a lot of chances. They had a lot of opportunities, but Italy's game plan felt very appropriate for this match. And they got the early goal, got the early lead, and then things changed a little bit once Giuliani went out.
Yeah, so as soon as Giuliani got injured, I was heartbroken. And in fact, she was heartbroken. Obviously, we saw her crying as soon as she knew she couldn't return. I actually thought at that point they were donezo. I honestly really thought her sub did also a great job of picking up a little bit of that slack. Guaranteed, had she stayed in, I think she would have scored. I am actually honestly a little bit impressed with how they were able to make up her absence, but as soon as she went out, I was like, okay, this is not a good situation. And then England, as they have started as well against some other teams, looked very shaky in their defense. Their starting lineup looked a little confused. And then as soon as Serena made subs, which by the way, she waited a long time to do so, then we finally started seeing a difference. People can say what they want about Beth Mead, but I do think she made a difference. And again, this just goes to show how much depth you have of this squad. I mean, you're subbing Lauren James, who's incredible. Then you bring on Agyemang, you bring on Chloe Kelly. This is a team of players. However, they are not a team, is how I'm going to put it. And Italy played like a team. They played like a unit. They do not have the same depth as England does. They do not match the talent that England does on an individual basis. But look, I have more to say about England. I'll let you speak, and then I'll speak again.
So I was very creditable, I thought, the way Italy, because Italy was far I don't want to say lesser team in this case, but they were the team that no one expected.
No one
expected. They're the underdog. No one expected them to do well in this particular match. Everyone thought England was going to win. And the fact that Italy got up to a pretty good start, they were using Giuliani as an outlet, and they were playing pretty well. I think in the first half, Italy basically controlled the match quite decently and got the goal, and they got the lead. And then pressure started to build on England over time, right? Throughout the second half. And then you thought, are they going to get it? And it really looked like England may never get that goal. But a la Jude Bellingham against Slovakia in the Euros for the men's team, and again, like they did against Sweden, the women's team, this team just has something where they're able to come back. And that something, I think, is what you're talking about, is the subs. And this time they had just enough time to be able to do it. That 7 minutes, I don't know if that 7 minutes was the appropriate amount of time, but regardless, they got it done.
Yeah, I mean, look, two things can be true at once. Is Agyemang the breakout star of the tournament? In my opinion, yes. Like, is this a team that is scrappy and, has a bench that is willing to come up and score at the right moments? Absolutely. But here's the thing. With both the men's and the women's English national teams, I don't think either of them live up to the hype that they're ascribed with. And that is, again, the hype purely comes from the talent. Yes, all these individual players are world class players, but something happens when they play together whereby every time we're sometimes seeing them on the front foot playing like this, where they're just not playing well. And then, we have to bring in the subs and this and that. I just think based on the amount of talent that they have, I think they should be better than they are versus a team like Italy, which does not match at all, is punching above their weight. And that's a little bit of, I guess, my pet peeve with
Yeah.
certain teams when they, and again, this is not to say that England is fantastic team. However, I just don't think they match up to the aura that is surrounding them, both with the men and the women's team. And they kind of get caught in this, they're not great on PKs. They're not, and yeah, we'll get to that. They sort of, they maybe have a little bit of luck on their side. And, I just feel like they should be better. And of course, they're still great, but I think they should be better. I think they should be as good and playing as much unified as a team like Spain does, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, and these are the defending champions, and this is why I think the gauntlet has always been very high on English teams because the sport is a religion, right, in England, and there's always this confusion as to with all this talent, how come it doesn't show? Now, look, the women's team has won a title, the last one around, right? They won the Euros, and in this tournament, they've made it back
And the
to a
men
final.
also got to a final.
Yeah,
I mean,
final. Yeah, and then have done won the World Cup. So in this case, and now there's 3 finals in a row, which is very credible. The problem is not the talent. The problem is sometimes the play on the field where you see just the first half of this match was very underwhelming from an English perspective. Now, credit to Italy. Italy played very, very well in this match. And we're going to get to the very pivotal moment because I thought after Agyemang scored, right? Then you're going to see, okay, the momentum is going to shift and England may get the goal, right? And so we thought, okay, England through a run of play might get the goal.
yeah, I
But
mean, they had the
yeah,
woodwork. Like, yes,
yeah,
there was a lot of close chances.
a lot of close chances. And there was a lot of opportunity still, maybe 4 more minutes in the match for England to potentially get a goal. And England was the likelier team at that point to get a goal. All right. Instead of that, from the run of play, there was a very, very controversial moment. I'm sure everyone who's watching this saw it, where it was a penalty that was awarded. And I got to ask you, do you think it was a penalty? And then I'll give my take on it.
Okay, there is nothing I despise more than a soft PK. However, addendum, there is one thing I despise more than a soft PK, and that is a soft PK awarded in the 119th minute, the most pivotal moment of the game. This was by far the stupidest way that England could have won. It certainly was not a PK in the game, let alone in this moment. You cannot be calling that. These two players were jostling, someone fell, maybe there was like a little bit of, something going on. You cannot call that unless it is an absolute flagrant penalty call. I was just astonished. It's just one of those things where, I was watching the game and even some England fans were like, oh yeah, we got really lucky. Like that wasn't a pen. It was not. It was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it just, and it's just there's a chance that England may have gone to penalties and won fair and square. And I just think that was like very silly. And first of all, not only was that silly, but let's just talk about Giuliani and how great she was throughout the game because she really was. And she saved that PK.
Yeah.
Granted, you know, I think Italy could have stepped up to the ball for the rebound a little bit faster. I'll be honest, I have never been a fan of that rule in general. I really feel like, and this is a very hot take, but I really feel like penalties during regulation and extra time should be treated the same way that they are in penalty kicks. And I really don't think you should be able to do that. But that's, it's just, it was unfortunate because she saves it. It's not a great PK,
Yeah.
even though, Chloe Kelly starts with her little
Yeah.
signature horsey, thing. And she saves it. And then, it goes in. Like, it's just, the whole thing just felt very unfortunate.
I'll be honest, in real time, I looked at it and I said, okay, maybe it's a penalty. And then I watched the replay closely and I was like, there's no way that was a penalty. It looked to me like Beth Mead pulled the hand of Severini, I believe her name was, of the Italian defender on her way down a little bit. Almost, it looked like she almost pulled her hand on the way down. I don't know if she was like kind of meant to do that or what it was, but it seemed like, just like you said, jostling between two players. And in that situation, what the ref needs to do is not call a penalty, let VAR take a look at it, have
Mhm.
VAR look at it and say if there's something there in that jostling that VAR sees, because VAR is the one when there's kind of a coming together where VAR can tell her, hey, it's a penalty. Now, I guarantee you what probably would have happened, VAR would have looked at it and probably not awarded that penalty. And that's rightfully so. Because in a situation like you said, where it's that pivotal of a moment, these have to be very blatant moments, right? These have to be clear goal scoring opportunities or some violation of the rule that's extremely blatant. Here, it's a very touch and go situation. And in that situation, if I'm the ref, what I got to do is not call it. Let VR tell me, hey, you should look at this because this was a situation that needs to be given.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, I mean, could they not have reviewed that and overturned that? Because I understand once the ref usually calls it, it stands, but that has been happening lately where they are overturning penalties and the ref reviews it and sees and says, actually, no, it's not.
Yeah. I think VR should have overturned that as well. I think it was the onus becomes higher after the ref calls a penalty from a VAR perspective, right? And
Sure.
I think the burden of proof, so to speak, has to be a higher bar. But in that situation, this one angle I looked at, I was very much like, I don't know if Beth Mead here maybe embellish this a little bit. And I agree. A lot of players will do that. It's in their right to do that. But that's where VAR has to step in and be like, no, this is not a penalty. It was just a coming together. Again, I put it on the ref because if the ref doesn't call it, this whole situation never happens.
Yeah, and look, the ref did call some soft fouls in favor of Italy
Yeah,
against
for sure.
England throughout the game,
For
but
sure.
that doesn't mean that to make up for that or to compensate for that, you call this ridiculous. I mean, I just there's no justification for it. And if I were a player watching that, I would just be like, this is just one of those times where football can be very unfair. And
Yeah.
that's it just kind of sometimes it falls in other people's favor, sometimes it doesn't. And I will say there were other opportunities that I think Italy did such a good job of stepping to the ball early, like winning those balls always, and England wasn't really playing with that urgency. But then towards the end of the game, they did. Italy started getting tired, and I think especially towards those ones where they had opportunities to cross it into the box, there wasn't that clinical finish. There wasn't players perhaps there, but regardless of that, I still think this, if we're just taking this moment in isolation of this PK, I just think it was a very silly way for them to
Yeah.
win. And just is such a departure too from their game against Sweden, because in my opinion, that game they fought and they came back and you know, it was, it was I don't want to say fair result because it's it's football, like the chips fall where they may, but
Yeah. Right.
it
Yeah.
felt deserved. It felt very earned.
Yeah.
So, and this just, yeah, I don't know. It kind of left you with a feeling like it wasn't.
Yeah, I think that's the issue with this particular situation, right? So, you want to see a team win, and maybe, like I said, I think England could have gone on to win with another goal, scoring just how they did in the last minute. It's possible, right?
I
So,
mean, yeah, and Agyemang did great to keep them in the match, and that was already such a big boon. And I don't know. And it to me is also just again, like I want to reiterate, some people said Giuliani that goal, like she could have the first goal, she could have maybe held on to it. I personally don't think so. I don't even think people are talking enough about that save. I believe it was off the corner where she just tipped it and it was actually going in. Like she did a lot of good work to keep them in the game. And it was just really unfortunate that this is how it all played out. And it's always hard seeing an underdog
yeah,
lose like that. And I think it also just highlights the difference with yes, maybe a team like this is excellent, but they have to have all of their starting lineup intact versus a team like Spain, a team like England. They can afford to kind of to have this full bench.
Yeah, 100%. But in the end of the day, England got it done. England got through. Fans out there, let us know your thoughts. Do you think it was a penalty? I have a feeling I know what some of them are going to
The
say, but
fans are gonna grill me. I'm gonna
look, England, as we've said before, credit to England. England Lionesses, you all have made it now to 3 straight finals, as I mentioned numerous times. That's a fantastic feat, and they'll have a chance at another one. Maybe they'll get another shot at Spain, or it could be Germany. Whatever it is, it's going to be a tough rivalry. So let us know your thoughts out there, fans. If you're enjoying these videos, please subscribe to the channel. Ishana, final thought, and we'll finish up there.
I mean, I I don't. My final thought would just be like I hope that this Italian program continues to grow because I really think that they demonstrated so much. You know, they were my original choice for dark horse along with Sweden, and I think they demonstrated a lot of power in this tournament, and it was enjoyable to watch them play. And I hope that one thing I've mentioned throughout too is I think we've seen some great goalkeeping in general in the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and you see how much it makes a difference in quality. So I would love, I keep saying this, but I really, really would love for all these other keepers to catch up because, both these keepers today, it was just
great
lovely
save.
to watch.
Yeah, great saves by both keepers. They made some really big saves. So, all right, everyone, we will continue covering the women's Euros. Keep watching the women's Euros. Keep watching women's football, and keep watching the beautiful game.